First, let me say I never spoke to you for Pig. Love the movie, and I love the performance you did, helped craft with Nick Cage. It's just fantastic. Jumping into this. Originally, Jeff Nichols was working on it. He leaves. You come in. What was it like? Did you go pitch John? How did it happen?
Yeah, so John Krasinski saw Pig and just reached out and said, hey, I really responded to that movie. You want to bring some of that to the Quiet Place universe? And he kind of laid out, in the second Quiet Place, they referenced Day One in New York City. Djimon Hounsou's character talks about that. And they were Paramount and John had decided, we want to explore that story. What did New York on Day One look like? And so he kind of gave me that prompt and said, what's your in to this? What would you want to explore that would feel like a movie all your own? So I thought about it for a little while, and I kind of came to this character of Sam that's going through a pretty specific moment in her life, and because of that is interacting with the apocalypse in a pretty specific way. I presented that to him, not expecting that much. I was like, hey, this is not your typical horror movie protagonist, but this is who I'd want to follow. And thankfully he said, heck yeah, let's do it. And then he just gave me a lot of freedom to kind of find this world for myself, find these characters, and find that emotional core. And then we would bounce ideas back and forth, and he would read drafts and all that. But yeah, it was just really kind of generous of him to sort of hand this over and say, hey, make this your own.
What surprised you about making your first big budget Hollywood movie?
I mean, weirdly, the thing that surprised me was how it didn't feel that different from making an indie movie. On set, yeah, you have 10 times as many people, but at the end of the day, ideally it's just a lot of people that are all trying to make the same vision, and you're talking to each other and coming up with ideas, and your job isn't that different. It's just more,
Sure.
Which was kind of reassuring, and it was nice to know, you can still kind of have a familial indie vibe even on a big studio movie.
One of the things about this is you need to get the casting right. But this is also a movie that I would imagine a lot of people want to be in. So what is it like casting when you can basically cast who you want?
I mean, I think there aren't that many characters in this movie, so a lot of it was just imagining who had to embody these characters and who would bring the most to it, and reaching for the stars. I mean, when we cast Lupita, I was pleasantly shocked that she was willing to do this. I was like, okay, she's done horror, she's Lupita Nyong'o, is she really gonna do this? And she responded to, she loves the franchise, she responded to the character and the material, and just was willing to go to some really deep places with it. So you kind of just count your lucky stars a little bit and hope for the best, and we ended up just with an amazing cast that plays off of each other really beautifully. So yeah, you're just kind of thinking of who can serve the character most and who's excited about the character. You don't want to have to force anyone to do anything. It's about, hey, does this character speak to you, and is this someone you want to embody? And if someone's reaction is like, yeah, I could do that probably, then it's like, oh, that might not be that exciting. But if someone's like, oh yeah, I really relate to this, and I was thinking about this and that, then you have someone that's really going to kind of bring it.
So I love cats. I was surprised that the third lead in the movie is a cat.
Yep.
At any point, did anyone say to you, it should be a dog?
No one said it should be a dog. I think people got that. I think cats are more like predatory animals. They know to be quiet. They know how to survive and to hunt. So I think a dog would just see a creature and start barking, and it wouldn't go great. So I think it made sense. It also kind of made sense in the New York environment. There's kind of this stray street cat vibe that works for Frodo. And yeah, it was, I know Lupita was kind of cautious about working with a cat because she was really afraid of cats when we started this movie. But she just was willing to commit and brave that. And by the end, she loved cats, and she has her own now. So, it always made sense that it was a cat, but it definitely had its struggles.
So I love the name Frodo, but I know it must have taken you a while to figure out what's the perfect cat name. So yeah. What did it almost become?
Were there ever any other names? I think it was Frodo from very early on. I liked the Lord of the Rings reference, that they're going on this journey. I liked that Sam, as kind of a literary person, as a poet, would name her cat after a character from a book.
I just want to also point out Samwise.
Yeah, Sam and Frodo. Sam's got to carry Frodo to the end of the world. It was definitely, kind of a fun reference, but also something that made sense for her character. So it just seemed really natural.
So when you're working on the screenplay, how much were you thinking about oh, this is going to cost a lot of money. Can we do this? Like, were you ever thinking about budget or the set pieces while you were writing?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. You know, you want to. I was always approaching set pieces as, what is this doing for the character? What does this mean for their story? You know, you want things to feel big and exciting, but it also always has to feel like, why is Sam going through this, and what is this going to do for her story? So sort of initially you just don't think about budget at all, or I didn't, and then as you start figuring out how you're going to have to pull things off, then you either come up with new ideas or make compromises or figure that out. So I tried not to let that affect the storytelling too much early on, and then it just becomes a problem-solving thing later on of like, oh, okay, maybe this is going to be too hard, or like, oh, maybe we could actually go bigger with this. So yeah, I wasn't thinking about that too much, and I was really just focusing on character and what felt right and felt exciting.
What was the biggest change from inception to what people are going to see on screen?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, a lot of the core stuff was started early on, like sort of the ending, the characters. I mean, this is a cop-out answer, but I think the biggest pleasant surprise is you write a character like Sam and Eric, and this is a story about them kind of learning about each other and seeing each other. I think Lupita and Joe embodying that and taking that to a whole other level that, you know, I didn't even expect they could sort of reach. Like, there's so much that they have to do in silence to convey that relationship that, you know, you read it on paper and you say, oh, I hope we feel this way, and then you see them perform it and you're like, oh, we feel this way and even more. That was kind of the best pleasant surprise.
So in the movie, you do a lot of close-ups, and it really conveys you getting to know what they're feeling, and you know, you can just see their faces. How much did you debate? How did you want to photograph the film, and where and when to use close-ups?
Yeah, so I shot this with Pat Scola, who is the cinematographer for Pig. So we've, you know, worked on both of my movies together. He's like a brother. He, you know, I think we just really understand how the other one works at this point, and we kind of know what we want. So mostly we just sat down, went through the script, and shot listed the whole thing. And we approached it, even though we had more resources, we approached it like a smaller movie where we were just, you know, here are these specific shots that we want to get. We generally did a single camera. Occasionally you do a couple cameras, but, you know, we tried to be really specific about which shots we were getting and how we wanted to portray every scene. And the close-ups were really important because this was a story about Sam and Eric going through the apocalypse. This was not, we were not trying to make purely leaning into just the big spectacle. It was about how are they experiencing this big spectacle. So being with them and being able to experience their emotions and the subtleties of that was really important, and Pat just shot it so beautifully.
So I'm going to do some spoilers, so everyone cover their ears who doesn't want to hear about the end of the movie. I apologize. So one of the things is that Lupita is in hospice.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that's not like the most uplifting thing. I know John liked it, but did the studio ever say, really? Hospice?
I mean, I think everyone was really brave about that. I think there was that initial instinct of, oh boy, that's a risk for a protagonist for a horror movie, someone who isn't even planning on surviving. Because, you know, a lot of these movies often come down to fundamental survival as kind of the tension it comes from that. But that was sort of the thing that excited me, was how can we make a tense movie, an emotionally fulfilling movie, where at the end of the day, survival isn't even really the goal. So I think everyone got behind the kind of exciting side of that. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of the original idea for the movie, was I don't want to see all the stuff that you associate with kind of a disaster movie, fighting, surviving, escaping. I want to see someone who's on a very personal journey because the apocalypse gives them the opportunity to kind of live again.
Sure. Also, it's just about New York City pizza.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately.
Yeah.
You know,
which is the most important thing in the world. So
the pizza here is fantastic. So how did you decide on that last shot? Because it's her sort of on the street, enjoying music, being home, and then, you know, talk a little bit about that last shot.
Yeah, so I mean, I knew from very early on that had to be the ending, and that was kind of a big challenge of the movie, was how do we get to a place where that is the ending, yet somehow it feels triumphant and earned and life-affirming. Like, I didn't want it to end on a downer, but on paper, it's a pretty downer ending. But it's kind of the same thing for the whole movie, is on paper, New York is destroyed, the world is over, this is the apocalypse, but how do we find that hope and that joy in that? So I kind of knew that we needed to reach that place, and then it was figuring out how to actually shoot it. It was just talking to Pat a lot about how do we want to approach this. Like, we could have we could have done it in multiple shots, but there was something about kind of being swept up into the city and just sort of swirling around her with the wind and the music, that just felt like we wanted to feel like we were almost in like her memory of the city for one last moment before it all ended. So I don't know. I just wanted, after a very bleak, desolate kind of thing, it was nice to be at like a sunny day in New York and just be out for a stroll.
One of the things I think people are going to wonder is, in the movie, obviously you make any sound and the creatures get you pretty fast. In the end of the film, Lupita shatters a bunch of windows, alarms are going off, she is running. How does she survive when all those... I mean, this is me giving you shit, but how does she survive when all the things are running at her?
Yeah, well, I think the idea there is she kind of learns it from Eric earlier on. They escape by setting off a car alarm. And the nice thing about setting off a car alarm with a bunch of other cars around is that, especially once creatures start attacking, they'll start setting off more car alarms, and it starts sort of crescendoing into this. And the idea is, yeah, she makes a sound somewhere that she can then leave behind and get away. And then as they're tearing stuff up, tons of car alarms start going off. So she's, using the car alarms as a distraction to get away. But she also, like, doesn't get that far away, and it eventually almost doesn't work. So it doesn't go perfectly to plan.
Sure, I'm totally teasing.
We talk about this stuff all the time. It's good.
So it was announced that you're going to be doing, I want to make sure I say it right, The Death of Robin Hood.
Yeah.
And you landed two incredible actors. How long had you been working on that script?
So I wrote that script right before coming out to Quiet Place. I kind of made a deal with myself where if I was going to do a big studio movie, I wanted to make sure I had kind of my smaller passion project in the wings that I could be thinking about. I wrote it right before writing this and have just kind of been playing with it in the background, and then we started taking it out, and I don't know, it just kind of became this. Initially when writing it, I wasn't sure it was going to be my next movie, but I knew I wanted to have something I cared about. And as I was kind of going through this process, I was like, it's pretty obvious that it has to be that movie. I just kind of fell in love with it more and more. And then as we brought these incredible actors on, it's just, it's where my heart's going to be at for the next year.
Yeah, it's weird because I saw it's going to start shooting like in February of next year. Is it weird to be knowing like that far away that that's the shoot time? You know what I mean?
I mean, it is, but with movies, time collapses so much. Like, you're shooting in February, that means you're going to start prepping in like November. And then suddenly it's like, well, November's only a handful of months away. Like, it's sort of, the timelines compress pretty quickly, and there's so much to do with location scouting and figuring this out and that out and getting the whole team together that it doesn't feel as, I mean, it is weird, but it's something you kind of get used to because you need that stretch of time. And I could also, I could use a little vacation beforehand, too.
There's no such thing as vacation.
I know.
You're going to be writing on vacation. You'll be thinking about things. So my question, though, about the film is, it sounds like, Hugh's going to be playing someone who's injured. Jodie is there as a mysterious woman. Is this like sort of like a two-hander in like a house? Or is this also going to feature action set pieces?
It's a little bit of both. I don't know how you know so much about it.
Because it was in the story online.
Oh, okay. It's a little bit of both. It has both, I think, a sort of different version of the kind of epic Robin that we're used to, while also a very intimate story that's going throughout as well. So I think it'll have a little bit for everyone in that sense.
Sure. I think I have to wrap, but this information's online. Otherwise,
okay.
I believe you. How would I know it? I really want to say congrats. I know this is going to be a big hit, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you very much.